Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our connection to that which is bigger than us, to the great mystery, to beyond the veil, to the divine synchronicities that lead us through the breadcrumb steps to find out something even more magical about ourselves than we ever even imagined. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird. I love these conversations. I love to guide people on that journey, whether it's your first puzzle piece or your last or somewhere in between. I love to just be a part of your putting your puzzle together and your discovery process of your journey here on Earth. So if that sounds interesting to you, check me out on my website, carriehummingbird.com, Kerri hummingbird.com. You might find information about Butterfly Circle because I love Mariposa Butterfly. Nobody does transformation better. She's a master. And another master we're going to be talking with today is Linda Lang. Welcome to the show, Linda.
Wow. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here with you, Carrie.
I'm so glad you're here. So Linda, if you felt her voice and her heart, Linda is an emotional alchemist, a consciousness coach, and gifted healer with over 35 years experience. By bridging energy medicine, intuition, and guidance, Linda's work brings alignment while releasing what no longer serves, honing our gifts, and stepping more fully into our resilience. She's a water whisperer, a fourth level initiate of Huna Shamanism, a master practitioner of NLP, trained in hypnosis, Reiki, and a variety of other transformation tools because, of course, we love those when we get on this path. Her podcast is called Exploring the Mystical Side of Life, where she delves into a wide variety of spiritual and metaphysical perspectives, and you'll find an episode with Carrie Hummingbird up there as well. So bring a little magic into your life today. Stay tuned for this broadcast with Linda, and we're going to start just, how did you get started? Because, we collect so many tools and so many practices and so much wisdom. We have this backpack that we carry around with us. We're like, woohoo, all this wisdom from my life's journeys. And, we know that the journey unfolds and evolves and like the lotus blossom that we learned from our mud and we learned from our suffering and our pain. So where did this journey begin with you in this incarnation, Linda?
Well, Carrie, I actually think that I was always on this path, but I became consciously involved in that path when I was 22. When I was 13, my mom for Christmas got me a gold ankh and an Ouija board, if you can possibly imagine that. I'm sure she didn't know what either of those two things meant, but Spirit works in amazing ways. When I was 22, I had been diagnosed with a very rare and aggressive cancer. I was given a very poor prognosis with a year to live, so I just walked away from the medical system and started having reoccurring dreams, mystical experiences, messages coming, all to kind of get me where I needed to go. Obviously, I'm not 22 anymore. I'm considerably older than that. And, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you had mystical visions, and did these visions lead you into ways of healing yourself?
It wasn't a spontaneous, like, healing that I went through. A lot of people actually ask me that. It was more like breadcrumbs on the path, just like you said on your intro. The very first experience I had was just a few days after I was diagnosed. And I was married, I had a young baby. I was 22 and I was an absolute basket case. And I just had a night by myself to kind of, settle into what my life was, what was happening in my life at that moment. And it was nighttime and I was crying and this orb came into the room. It was so dark I couldn't even find my nose. And it actually went up the nose cartilage into my third eye. And it took me to this dimension that was just like waves and waves of unconditional love. And just when you think you couldn't feel more love, there'd be another wave. It's, incredible. And that was healing in itself, but that didn't cure me of the cancer that was in my physical body. I needed to look after that. And I did that through herbs and energy work and belief change work and, dealing with my emotions and my forgiveness work, that little path that all of us healers are trying to get people on, that they don't want to go that route. But I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting that people don't want to take that route because they feel like it's too insubstantial or unpredictable or unknowable or something like, and people just want like, here, do this thing, step A, then do this, step B, then do this, step C, and then you're cured.
Or poof, you're cured. Yeah.
Or done, easy button, poop. But
Yeah.
that's not really, so on that journey of the breadcrumbs, I'm guessing that you learned things with each step of that journey that added to your healing.
I learned things, absolutely, and I remembered things, right? A lot of the learnings are actually remembrances of things that we probably already know somewhere in our psyche.
Like, give us an example of something that you remembered.
Well, the thing that comes to my mind actually is what probably happened maybe about 2 or 3 years after the diagnosis. So for that first 2 years after, I was really very cautious and very careful because, what if the doctors got the timeline wrong, right? That my human brain still kicked in. But Spirit kept talking to me and giving me these downloads. And I remember I had 3 different things that were kind of feeding my spiritual path at that time. One of them was spirituality, New Age spirituality, spiritual teachers, crystals, spirit connection, that sense of divinity inside of ourselves. One of them was a former neighbor who was a born again Christian who would come over every week to do a Bible study with me. And the third thing was, believe it or not, a Jehovah Witness who would knock on my door and want to have a talk with me, right? So in my youth and not knowing which path it was, I would listen to what everybody had to say. And one day I just asked and said, which one's the truth? They're all different, sort of similar, the Jehovah Witness and the born again Christian, they have similarities. But what happened was they showed me an apple. They showed me the apple with the skin on, and they showed me the flesh, and then they showed me the apple core. And they said, which one is more apple? And I was like, oh, okay. So it's not about being right or wrong, really. What happened after that was even more amazing because the Jehovah Witnesses never knocked on my door again, which is like very unusual, right? My born again Christian former neighbor never came for a Bible study. He like dropped off the map, and I'm like, okay, so they're all apple, but this is the path because this was still on my plate.
I have had a similar experience where for a while I kept having the Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on my door. And then, and I had all these questions too, like, oh, because there is this, because of the prevalence of Christianity in our culture, in the Western culture, there's this feeling like, well, that's the one true path. And if you're not on that path, you must be doing it wrong. And and my grandma was Southern Baptist. So there was extra affirmation that, like that was the way. And but my mom raised me without religion because she got very just she just lost her faith in it because of what was happening at the time with the church and the community and the civil rights movement and things like that. She saw a lot of things that were incongruent with each other. So she let me find my own way. And these conversations, they'd come to the door and I was like, why are they coming to the door? And I realized at some point it was because I needed to decide that I trusted what was happening in my heart. Like I needed to decide that I trusted, my visions of White Eagle, that I trusted that these ancestral visions and things that were coming to me were very true. I needed to trust that and lean into that and put a boundary and be like, you know what? That's your path. This is mine. That's nice. There's not one path. There's 8 billion paths. And I'm glad you found yours. Now you don't need to knock on my door and tell me what my path is. And once I did that, they never came back. Like that was it. We're done.
It's almost like you just really have to choose. Your soul is calling to you. You need to make that conscious choice, and then the path appears.
Yeah, and then it deepens and miraculous things happen. So tell me some of the miraculous things that happen for you, because I know the things that happened for me. I want to know what happened for you.
Well, I mean, this is like 35 years ago. Let's see. I guess probably the thing, one of my psychic gifts really opened up in that whole experience because I started to learn about herbs and I learned how to muscle test, what herbs to take, what foods to take, how to live what books to read. Really, I made lots of decisions through muscle testing, and at that time I needed the assistance of my husband to muscle test, and I was probably driving him wonky having to test everything, right? And I mean, he was really good for probably 2 years, yeah, which is amazing actually. But then it was just like, oh, I need to find a better way to do this, right? Without impacting him so much and being so dependent. And so the second I asked that, I reached into the cupboard to pull out a bottle of herbs, and I instantly could feel in my body that it supported me or it's not what I needed. So I had a new tool. And of course, I didn't meet my husband anymore. And he was like, well, you don't need me anymore. Well, I do, but not for that. But it was pretty funny. So it's really, our gifts are so close to the surface. And I think that when we are really open to listening, and we really need them, especially when we really need them. They're there. They're there for us, just waiting for us. So, of course, now I don't have to muscle test. I can just feel and sense energy. And that opened the gift up that now when I'm working with people and I tune into their system, I can feel things in their energy system. And it's so interesting because, they can maybe talk the talk, but I can tell if their energy system doesn't believe what they're saying. Sometimes it's what they want to be true, but it's like there's a big part of you that is not agreeing with that. And that's what we get to work on, is bringing congruence, right?
Bringing congruence. I love that. Before we started the interview, you actually did the water balancing thing. We'll talk about that in a second, but you balanced my glass of water and you looked at my energy field and you're like, oh, the whole left side of you is like really out of balance. And I'm like, that would be because I'm working on healing the mother wound. And I'm in the end of my book and I'm like working on all these divine feminine things. And it's like, a lot of healing's taking place. I've had like pain up and down my left side. I've had pain in my hip and down my leg, and things that my husband's been helping me with it. And it seems like these things that we're tasked to do by spirit are the things that we need, and then we can be in service to the collective, right? And so and it's like amazing to me how just writing the book, like just writing the book, all I'm doing is sitting, feeling, and expressing from my heart. And in that process of just that is actually moving energy, is moving energy, and it's creating a flow in the book that's healing me. And then as people read it, I know from the first book, The Second Wave, then they're actually getting healed too. I'm bringing them down. They're bringing themselves down the same pathway that I charted, if they choose it. So this is, really, I mean, this is amazing, right? And that these aspects need healing.
Well, I think it's really important that we remember that energy is always moving, right? Always moving. And it moves according to our thoughts and our emotions, our focus, our attention. So, of course, it's going to be moving energy through you as you're writing that book and for the people that read it.
It's amazing how consciousness and thoughts, they actually stir up sensations in your body that you can become aware of.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are not really conscious of what's happening in their body, and so they're missing all those spontaneous and really quick, they're really quick signs that the unconscious and the higher self give us through the body. I mean, we all have a body, so we can all learn how to use it as a tool for guidance. And it's absolutely incredible when you do start using it. Paying
Well, and
attention.
yeah, and since how much are we water, right? So we're like, I don't know,
At
70%
least
water.
70%, at least, right?
So being the water whisperer, isn't that healing people's bodies?
Oh,
Not
absolutely. And you've given me goosebumps. I mean, the whole story of how that came about is an absolute miracle. I mean, it's more recent on my path. It happened probably, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I'd won this reading from a woman in Sedona who never met me. She just sent me an email. Beautiful, beautiful reading. And she told me about two energies I carried. One of them was the diamond ray. And at the same time, I had been gifted by a spirit guide portrait from a psychic artist in Australia named Sharon Bosmore. And it was the most amazing portrait. It had this huge funnel of energy coming into my heart and also going out of my heart. And it had my face, then one half was a female guide and one half was a male guide. And it was just, I mean, I just, had so much energy in this portrait. And as soon as those two pieces came together, and like within a week of each other, I started channeling this diamond ray on myself. I didn't have any symbols or didn't know how to call it, except I did, right? It's another one of these gifts that just kind of show up when you need it. And I started working with people. It's very fast, very intelligent, very high vibe. Like the Reiki masters, their eyes would get really big and they're like, oh my God, it's so fast. This energy is so fast. And then probably about 6 months afterwards, I'm standing in my kitchen and I hear this voice that says, why don't you remolecularize water? And I'm like, that's not a word. Who said that? I don't know how to do that. And I walked right over to the kitchen counter, put my hand over my water, and poof. And it was so delicious, Carrie. It was so smooth. And it was like having a massage on the inside. It was just incredible. So I have incorporated the water healing into my work with people. And yes, I do channel directly to people. We are at least 70% water. And you get that beautiful, peaceful, smooth, silky feeling. Quite often, I'm feeling like where the energy is working on when I'm channeling it. I've had people tell me they've had past life healings with it, that it's, taken them out of a fear and put them into peace. It's just, it's an amazing energy, and I use it a lot. It's not the only energy I use, but it's fantastic.
I'm so curious. Have you ever done any like pH tests or anything like before and after with the water to see if what it's happening to it?
That's actually a really interesting idea. I haven't done pH tests, but it does taste very alkaline. So if people come to a session with alkalinized water, they're not going to notice a difference. It doesn't mean the energy isn't there, but I tell them to try it with coffee or tea because it takes the bitterness
It
away.
does. I mean, I'm having some of it right now that you did before the
Yeah.
show, and it does. It's very interesting. It is silky. That's a really good way of describing it. It's very silky. But I wonder because you also have a very silky beingness. Like, I don't know. Like when you speak, you have this hypnotic way that you speak, and it's very deep and warm and silky and grounded and like flowy and so it's kind of like the water.
Well, I channel a lot of energy through my throat chakra, so there is a benefit to listening when I get into this place. There is a benefit for sure. I will say that my guides, I have like the best guides. Well, you have great guides too. We all have
White
amazing
eagle. I
guides.
love white eagle. And I love
Just,
all your eagles in the back there. I mean, we're both eagle people.
we are eagle people for sure. They told me that drinking the water was the fastest way to get it into the cells of the physical body. So, if I'm channeling it to you, it's got to go through all the layers, right? So this way it can work from the inside out, and I channel from the outside in. So it kind of works both ways.
Yeah, that's actually very resonant with a message I got during an ayahuasca ceremony where the medicine was telling me that um, she was introducing a lot of other plants to my energetic field from the outside layer and letting me know, okay, these are ready to work with you. And in order for you to fully integrate and work with them, you'll need to ingest those medicines at some point. But we'll bring them into your field. We'll bring them in, part as far in as we can get, and then you'll have to ingest it to create complete the circle, the cycle, the circuit. So I have done that with tobacco, and it's amazing. It's like having the plant on the inside, and I would not recommend that anybody do this without an experienced shaman, like from the jungle, not Westerners. Um, it's a very interesting experience to have that plant consciousness on the inside operating with the spirit of the plant on the outside and all of it fully integrated and seamless. It's like it's an inner experience of the plant medicine. And so in this way too, it's like there's a way in which the healing that you're channeling is coming from the outside, like you said though, but then having it on the inside, it can it merges, it completes the circuit.
Yeah, it allows for greater depth of wisdom for sure.
So, I tell me a little bit more about Huna Shamanism. Is that Hawaiian shamanism?
Yeah, it's Hawaiian. I was first introduced to it in 2005. I'd never heard of it before. And again, this is how spirit works. It leaves you breadcrumbs. So a friend of mine said, there's this Huna workshop this weekend. Why don't you come? I'm like, $200, and I've never heard of it. And she's like, come, so I come. And I had the most amazing experiences. There are traditions in the Huna culture that, are our indigenous people that were connected, the shamans, the kahunas, the wisdom keepers, oh, they had a way of working with energy, that is palpable, really. So I'm in this weekend workshop, and we're doing a forgiveness process, Ho'oponopono. My training is very different than the standard teaching that's out there. It's a kind of shamanic way, and in that process, I feel something leave my energy field. There's a way in that process that the shamans could release attachments or entities that are stuck on you. So I feel it leave, and just as they're closing the energy, I feel it burn back in. So I had to go up to the trainer at the end and say, hey, guess what? It came back. And he sat me down and just got rid of it. Like, poof, it was gone. That was my first experience with really these kind of unconscious energy attachments. And it was perfect because it made me really realize how real it was and how subtle they can be as they merge into your energy. You don't really know that they're there. They can shift your perspective, your mood, your attitude, your thoughts. And I wonder sometimes how many people that have mental illness, how many of them actually have this kind of attachment. It would be, interesting to know that for sure. But I was able to release that. I had another really profound experience of releasing thoughts and emotions. There's an amazing technique that we use. It's called hohoku'u, where we go in and pull it out of your energy system. And it's like poof, gone. I've had very intense phobia taken away in like 30 seconds. I mean, it was ridiculous. And magic. And what's better than magic?
Well,
I don't know.
I've experienced some similarities. The thing about the entities, I have the same realization that you just shared, because on my path, as I was training in a different method with the four winds, but we did do entity extractions. And what's amazing is sometimes the entity is a person who died that you loved and that they loved you and they came to your light. And then they got trapped there and they don't know how to get out. So that happened to me. And sometimes it's other things, right? Some parasites or things like that travel down the family line. And so they do influence the way you think and perceive. And they do instigate conflict sometimes too. And so what I noticed is that on my journey, the more that I elevate my frequency and the more mindful I am about my energetic maintenance, which most people have, we're taught how to brush our teeth, but not clean our chakras, things like that. Become aware of densities and become aware of your behavior, become aware of your thoughts, become aware of yourself, so that when something starts to get aberrant, you're like, wait a second, that doesn't feel like me. What is that? I was at a rock concert and I drank too much alcohol. Oh, now I might know I need to go do some maintenance, right? And like oust that thing. The other thing is that I feel like it's like if you don't know who you are, like if you don't know you're sovereign, then things can come in. But once you know you're sovereign, you can easily just be like, no, out of here. Like that. I'm in my space. This is my lifetime. You're not in my space. Like. So what's your realizations? Because those are just some of the ones that I've had. But what are some of yours about those things?
Well, I definitely agree with you. We have not been taught how to be sovereign. I think the shamanic path is a way to really embody your sovereignty, for sure. I've got a definite goosebumps again. I think one of the big realizations for me was how easy it can be to be kind of knocked off the path or influenced in a way that we're not consciously aware of when we don't have those clear boundaries, when we don't know who we are, when we don't verbalize or embody our desires, our morality, our intentions, our authenticity. I mean, these are all things too, that will strengthen the throat chakra as well as the solar plexus. I mean, I guess the thing that it did the most for me was really connected me again with the magic. I had the magic when I had cancer and had all these mystical experiences, and then you get busy with your life, right? Now it's fully embodied them, and it's no longer, I call it magic, but I think magic is present for all of us all the time. It's not something, it's more normal than our conscious day-to-day lives if we allow it to be. And, our dead relatives count, right? Our state of being, our energy counts. I'm not in any way suggesting that people, stick their head in the sand and pretend that they're not feeling, anger or sadness or fear or guilt, because that just buries those emotions in your energy body. You need to, goosebumps again, you need to actually release them. You need to feel them, let them go, and reclaim your sovereignty from them, because they will wreak havoc on your physical body if they stay there.
Yeah, my experience on the shamanic path is that there's initiations too, where some of these parasitic influences are there to provoke you into healing things that are gaps. It's sort of like the Jedi, So like in Star Wars, there's the Jedi, and the Jedi like can't have anybody that they really love too much, because then that person could be used against them by darker forces on their path to take them off of their path. And so in the same way, it's kind of like sometimes it has felt like very challenging things have happened through other people close to me in my life to try to cause me pain that would then send me down into some despair tunnel so that I would stop doing the work that I was here to do in the world. And so I had to overcome those things and like move through the pain of that and release the attachment of those things so that I could heal. And then these things trying to provoke me through my other people, they have nothing to win by doing that. There's no gain. You know what I'm saying? Like I started just realizing, wait a second, like there's actually, like, that's not my beloved person. That's something influencing my beloved person to act this way towards me, to create suffering. And I see it for what, and once you see it for what it is, it has less power.
And it takes a fundamental trust that the things that show up on your path are there for your own evolution, right?
Exactly. It's not like everything is God, like all that is, right? Including these pieces that are like coyotes. They're there to trickster and give you trouble and provoke you into the initiation that you're really facing. And for me, I had to face my codependency, right? Like my needing validation from these people and expectations and love and all this. I had to find the love inside. I needed to find it inside and allow people to do as they were, not to coerce situation and manipulate them to do what I want so I could feel good. I think that's a lesson many of us are facing right now, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think that's the path we're all on.
So these things are just, it's like not to be afraid of them, right? Like some of them can certainly be scary. I've had a client recently had a scary experience and, came to me or whatever. But every time I see those things now, I'm like, okay, that's a trickster. It's fine. But just clear the energy. What's the lesson you learned from it? And just move on, so not like keep dwelling on the old story of how scary it was.
Well, if you dwell on it, then you're actually giving your life to it, aren't you?
You're giving it energy because every time you think about it, you're giving it consciousness and which is giving it energy and keeping it alive.
Claiming it and making it part of your identity.
So I claim White Eagle a lot, and I make White Eagle part of my identity because I love him.
Perfect. That's perfect.
So what's some way that somebody could tell? I know we kind of probably already made it obvious, but just make it even more obvious. What are some ways that somebody could be able to tell if they had, some kind of parasitic, not beneficial something that was influencing them?
Well, I actually think it's easier for people, their loved ones, to tell if all of a sudden there's like a personality change. The things that you cared about, you don't care about anymore. You're having emotional outbursts. You are in the middle of it. So you might not actually realize that because, there's a part of you that still feels like you until you develop that sensitivity of that body sense of what you really, really feel like, right? Then you might not recognize. I know I've had clients. One in particular, a husband called me and said, "Thank you for giving my wife back." She actually recognized because she'd worked with me for quite some time, so she's developed that sense, and she recognized something was off. Something was off. And so, sure enough, we got rid of the attachment. She was back to herself, and her husband had noticed, but I didn't put two and two together, didn't realize what was happening, because as these little parasites sit on our energy field, they shift things, right? They shift things, and it's not blatant. It's not like, the devil shows up at your doorstep with horns and a pitchfork breathing fire. It's insidious almost. It's just kind of like a little worm that gets in there and it shifts and shifts and shifts. So it's not as easy to tell unless you go see someone, or if someone you love or someone who knows you very well notices a shift in your behavior that's negative. You can have shifts on your spiritual path where you are expressing more light and more of who you truly are.
Once you
It's
get rid
not,
of those entities that have been there since you were little, because they
yeah,
get in through trauma too. They get in through fear and trauma, like when you're little. Like that's what happened to me.
absolutely.
I had a lot of those things get in when I was little, and then as I was on my healing path with the four winds, and then we were learning about practicing on each other and doing healings and stuff like that, it started releasing. And I
Absolutely.
had my teachers pick me out to do some pretty deep classroom example healings because I had a lot of stuff. So like I was the good class example. So, as that stuff got cleared, I lightened up, it was like, wow, I was carrying a lot of heavy burdens around. So we not realize it.
And that's it, isn't it? You feel so different when they're removed. You feel lighter, more joy, more happiness, more yourself.
Hmm. And more clear, like you just get more clear and more clear and more clear and more clear about who you really are. And then also like there's positive energetic integrations like with your soul self and things like that that are totally different, that are positive and beneficial. And then those things they gently embody, so it's not so radical.
Yeah. And you can do things like having salt baths and purification rituals that can help you for really, I don't know what to call them. I guess I'd call them malicious. Not necessarily that they're malicious, but they're really connected to your energy field and they've made you home. They can be a little bit more challenging for a person to get rid of themselves unless they've had training to do that.
And so that's a really good thing for people to keep in mind right now, because one of the first things you start to learn as you wake up is the discernment of you are not one thing, and that there could be things operating within your field that are not you, that have been causing some suffering for you and your loved ones that you need to release. And so that's actually really helpful at this time right now, because I know this is going to be going on in January 2021. There's a lot of people acting really crazy. And, and part of that is these entities that know that, is because as you bring the light to the darkness, they go, uh-oh, and they try to hold on. So yeah, getting some help from somebody like Linda, or myself to get those cleared out would be a really good idea right about now.
And
Yeah,
really trust the path. I think, when
yeah.
you are living in a fear state, you're a magnet for more
Yeah, you're a
fear.
magnet for more fear. And the more you dwell on that, and the more you watch the news and then get all, fearful about the news and everything that's going on, and then make up the word stories that things are terrible, then you just attract a lot of lint, negative, toxic energy lint. But on that, I also want to say to my light worker people, stop siloing. Like, if you can only hang out with like one other person that's at your complete level of total frequency that you can handle, that's just not uncomfortable for you, and so you close out the whole rest of the world so that you can just not have any discomfort from anything toxic. I think at that point it's gone too far. Like, if it's resonating in you as toxic, what's happening, then there's something in you that's also that, because we are the whole ocean in a drop. So it's us, right, Linda? I mean, if we're feeling that, we're the ones who have to heal it within ourselves,
Absolutely.
not project it and blame it out on somebody else.
Exactly. You have nothing to worry about with toxic people if you have sovereignty, if you know who you are, and if you fill your space with light. You don't have to worry about toxic.
You can feel it, like, as an empath. I know you're very empathic as well. You can feel it, but that's a boundary that you don't take it on. Being able to perceive it is a gift. And the lesson in the gift is to not take it on yourself. If it's not yours, you can perceive it. It might feel some density, but if you're taking it on, you actually feel pained by it. There's a difference between just feeling the density, noticing it, and feeling pained.
And I think there's a lot of empathic healers that in their healing work take on people's pain to help them process it. And it's not empowering for the person. It's better that they learn how to deal with it. Although I would also say that, sometimes you're in the presence of someone and just being in a presence is healing. It's not necessarily that they're trying to heal you. It's just that their presence emanates, such peace and such love.
It's a frequency that then you can entrain yourself to,
Exactly.
but you're still doing the healing on you by being in that frequency
Yes. And choosing it, right? And choosing it.
and choosing to align yourself to it. Like, the longer you hang out in this broadcast, the more you get entrained with the piece that is Linda Lang. And you go, "Ooh, that feels good. Ooh, she's just like a kitty rubbing my belly, my kitty belly." Okay, so that was beautiful, Linda. Gosh, I love your energy. I love just the peace that you are, the love, the silkiness, the silky peacey joy that you are, the emotional alchemist, the water whisperer. And is there anything you want to share with people about ways to get started with you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you. It's been my pleasure to be here with you. Your listeners can come and visit me at thoughtchange.com. I have a beautiful, beautiful membership group that's just started, which is like the most affordable way to work with me. It's called Alchemy from the Inside Out. We do energy activations, alignments, water healings, belief change work, and we also take inner journeys. One of my favorite things to do is taking those inner journeys. It's like being in a dream, and you get such incredible information from your unconscious mind, from your higher self, and you can actually make changes. It's just so much fun. I mean, working on yourself does not have to be painful. It doesn't have to be painful. It can be painful. It can be painful if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. So I encourage you to consider self-exploration as an adventure.
Self-exploration as an adventure. Ooh,
Yeah.
I dig that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
absolutely.
good
And of
message.
course, I invite them to come and listen to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life as well.
Yes, and I will be putting a link. Also, I'll put a link to all of that in the show notes, so you have ways to find Linda directly. Just click and go. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, listeners, please like, share, comment, engage with it, because this is how the engines know that this is valuable content that would support you and other people, and that they should be promoting it, and so that more people find it. And so if you can find us on iTunes and give us a like, or YouTube, wherever you find us, a comment, a share, our website, soulnectar.show, wherever you find us, just engage with us and let us know what you thought about this episode. And I'm going to give people kisses on the way out. Linda, would you like to give some Reiki kisses with me?
Oh, how about a diamond ray kiss?
Diamond
Yeah.
ray kiss. Okay, people, receive this diamond ray
Yeah.
kiss. And then you get some hummingbird kisses too. Here they come.
Okay.
Ooh, I feel that. Oh,
All right.
it's beautiful. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now.
Bye.